Welcome to Check This Out, podcast for kids.
And their grown-ups, where we explore people, places, ponderings, and past moments from history that shape the world around us. My name is Amy Contreras.
And I'm Cece.
Today we're diving into a mysterious past moment from American history, the disappearance of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. It's full of adventure, mystery, lots of questions, and some really surprising facts. Ready to get started?
Yeah! What does that word mean?
Great question, Cece. A colony is a group of people who settle in a new land that belongs to another country or group. So a colony can be a new place where people from one country move to and build towns.
Got it.
A long time ago, about 400 or 500 years ago, European countries like England and Spain and Portugal were exploring and setting up colonies in different parts of the world. One of those was in a place called North Carolina, where the colony of Roanoke was located. So you may be wondering, what happened to the Roanoke colony? Why is it called the Lost Colony?
Spill the tea.
Well, this is still one of the biggest mysteries in American history. The colony of Roanoke was established in 1587 by English settlers, and the beginning of life in the colony was difficult. The governor, John White, actually had to sail back to England to ask for more supplies because the colonists were struggling so much.
He sounds really brave.
He was, but it also took a long time to travel back to England from North Carolina. Remember, they didn't have planes back then, so they had to travel by boat. By the time John White left and returned, it took about 3 years.
Oh my goodness!
His ship was delayed due to England being at war with Spain. When his ship finally returned in 1590, all the people who had been living at the Roanoke colony had vanished.
What do you mean, Mama?
I mean, they were gone. There was no sign of them anywhere. All that was left was a message carved into a tree that said Croatoan.
More on that later.
What makes this extra sad and scary for John White, the guy who went to get the supplies from England, is that he left his wife, his daughter, and his grandchild behind when he sailed back to England for supplies.
Check this out.
John White's granddaughter was the first English child born in the Americas, but she had disappeared along with all the other about 150 or so colonists.
That's a lot of people.
Do you want to guess what the name of the first English child who was born in the Americas was? A. Virginia Dare. B. Victoria Courage. C. Velma Adventure. If you said A, you're right. Virginia Dare was the first English child born in the Americas. Her mother, Eleanor Dare, was the daughter of John White. We know Virginia Dare was born in the Americas because her grandfather, John White, didn't sail back to England for supplies until 9 days after she was born. But he never got to see his daughter or granddaughter again because by the time he came back, they were gone.
I can't believe that happened.
That's why we call Roanoke the Lost Colony, because nobody knows exactly what happened to those early settlers. Cece, what do you think happened?
I don't know.
People have been asking these questions for hundreds of years. Were the colonists taken by indigenous tribes? Did they move away? Did they get sick? Or did something else happen? That's what historians have been trying to figure out for literally hundreds of years.
I want to check out more about that.
We're going to.
Let's start at the beginning.
In the late 1500s, Europe was having an exploration boom. You might remember me talking about this in our other episode on Christopher Columbus and the voyage of 1492. The countries in Europe wanted to find trade routes, expand their empires, and ultimately gain dominance over other parts of the world.
I remember hearing about that.
England really wanted to find new lands. They wanted to find gold and riches. Queen Elizabeth I was the ruler at the time, and her country, England, sponsored explorers to go out and claim and find new lands for England. The first attempt to settle Roanoke was actually a couple of years earlier in 1585, but it didn't go well.
What happened?
The Roanoke colony was originally founded by an English explorer named Sir Walter Raleigh. Roanoke was founded for the first time in August of 1585, and it was on an island near modern-day North Carolina. The first colonists of Roanoke had a really hard time. They didn't have enough food supplies and dealt with lots of Indian attacks. After about a year, they had to give up and they all returned to England.
That's too bad.
This wasn't the end of the story, though. Remember, in 1587, there was another group that came out under John White, who served as the governor. This group had about 115 men, women, and children. Their goal was to establish a permanent colony on Roanoke. John White was a friend of Queen Elizabeth, and he was an artist and a map maker.
He sounds really brave.
All the colonists were brave. Starting your life from scratch in an unknown place is hard, and life on the island was tough. They had to build homes, find food, and deal with the weather. Like I shared earlier, things were so hard on Roanoke that John White traveled back to England to get supplies to help the colonists. But here's the tricky part. The ships got delayed for 3 years because of war with Spain and bad weather.
Man, oh man.
When John White finally returned to Roanoke in 1590, he was shocked. The colony, along with his daughter and granddaughter, were totally abandoned. When he got to the settlement, it was deserted. There was no humans left. And the only clue was a carved message on a tree that said Croatoan and the word crow carved into a tree.
What does that word mean?
Croatoan was the name of a nearby island and also a native tribe. The Croatoans were a friendly tribe that lived on what's now known today as Hatteras Island, but at the time it was called Croatoan. For hundreds of years, the most popular theory of what happened to the colonists was to assume that the settlers might have gone there to live. John White's men searched all over for the settlers, but they couldn't find them.
That's unbelievable.
In the 430 years since their disappearances, many clues, theories, and ideas have been investigated by historians. Do you want to hear a few of the theories?
Sure, Mama.
There's a theory that a hurricane struck and killed the colonists, or that the Spanish attacked them. But these theories always had problems because John White and his men didn't find any bodies or damage to the settlements.
Fair enough.
Another theory was that the colonists moved to a different location, like Chesapeake Bay, or sailed up another river. But if they did that, then why did they write Croatoan on a tree? The most popular theory that's persisted was that the colonists moved to Croatoan Island and started living with the indigenous tribes there. The colonists even wrote the word on a tree to indicate where they were going. But despite this pretty obvious clue, it would take more than 400 years before archaeologists could actually connect the settlers of Roanoke with Hatteras Island, which remember was called Croatoan at the time.
Check this out.
A group exists today called the Croatoan Archaeological Society. It's a nonprofit organization and it was founded in 2009. Their main job is to explore the history of Croatoan, which again is modern-day Hatteras Island. And this group is led by archaeologists who dig and excavate the island and look for clues about what happened to the colony all over the island.
Woo! History!
Local volunteers and professional archaeologists began excavations or digging on Hatteras Island in 2009. In 2013, experts began to discover evidence that suggested the theory about the colony of Roanoke was correct.
I want to check out more about that.
The excavations included findings like copper rings, sword handles, earrings, writing slates, and glass. All these things dated to the 16th century, and they were traced back to England. What that means is that these are things that the Croatoan tribe didn't make or use. So we know that things from England from that time period were on the island. And then in 2022, there were really big findings on the island, which made it really clear that the English settlers were very obviously living with and amongst the indigenous tribes.
I knew it!
Keep in mind, the colonists were instructed by John White to leave a sign if they had to leave the settlement. He specifically asked them to write the name of where they were going if they had to leave.
That makes sense.
And if they left because they were in trouble, they were supposed to add a cross to their message. When John White returned after his trip to England, he found that word Croatoan carved at the settlement and the letters crow carved into a tree. Neither of them had a cross beneath them. So that means that they weren't leaving because they were in trouble. Unfortunately, when John White returned, various circumstances with weather and resources stopped him from going to Croatoan Island. which again, modern day Hatteras Island. And so he wasn't able to actually go to the island and search for them. So this mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke might not be such a mystery anymore, but there are still so many questions about what happened. Why did the colonists leave? Did they all go together? Some things we may never know, but more and more evidence suggests clearly that the lost colony wasn't so lost and that they found a new home on Croatoan.
What an amazing story!
This past moment from history is one I've loved learning about since I was younger, and I encourage you to research more about the colony of Roanoke and Virginia Dare at the library or online with a parent. Now, before we let you go, you know we always like to leave you with a little rhyme.
We wrote you a poem.
Long ago and out to sea, the English formed a colony. Called Roanoke, it was 100 strong, with people trying to find a place to belong. Through hardship they fought for a place of their own. Their leader had to go ask for help from the throne. Upon his return, there was not a person in sight. They had vanished completely, mysterious as night. Never found, and a mystery to this day, the lost colony is still being searched for in its own way. Thanks for listening to another episode of Check This Out. Here at Check This Out, we know there's a lot of information and it can be overwhelming to find accurate information online. This podcast is a tool for you to help you do something called citing your sources. Our verified sources use information that's been confirmed for accuracy and credibility through an evaluation process. Our sources for this week's episode are Encyclopedia Britannica, History.com, the National Park Service, WHRO, and the Croatoan Archaeological Society. Join us next week for another episode featuring a past moment from history.
Thanks for listening. See you next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.